Hello and welcome. This is the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we have a Pro-Chiro connection with Zack Thomas. Dr. Zack, can you kind of just get us started by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about where you were at in life when you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor?
Sure. Yep. Zach Thomas, I practice in the Columbus, Ohio area currently, born and raised in this area as well. I kind of have a little bit of a later in life start to chiropractic than some chiropractors, I guess I'll say, not most. I didn't get adjusted until I was 23 after a pretty severe injury. And then I was at a time in my life where I was wanting to kind of make a transition, was looking for something a little different, um, was kind of in the health and wellness field already as a personal trainer, had the passion for that stuff already. I got adjusted for the first time. And I'll never forget that experience just because after that first adjustment, I left the office and, um, I noticed my vision was clearer. Colors were brighter. I was feeling different. I didn't know how to describe it at the time. But all I knew is like I needed to know more, and I wanted to be able to do the same thing for people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, from that experience, about 9 months, and I was on campus at Life University, starting my first quarter at chiropractic school. And here I am now, getting ready to come up on 5 years in practice.
Awesome. Awesome. Where's your inspiration at today? Like what's going on with you,
Yeah,
life, family, practice? Describe your life today. How is it?
yeah. Life is really good right now. We have a fantastic opportunity. You're actually catching me at a time we're actually getting ready to move into a new house currently that my wife and I have been envisioning and kind of working towards for a really really long time, and it's kind of coming to fruition now. Practice is good. We're really busy. I'm an associate currently at the practice that I'm at, um, with a great team and a great lead doc. We are very very busy. I see a lot of people ranging from infants that are only a couple of months old to uh, I think my grandmother is my oldest person in the office at almost 91. Um, so I have a really big, just wide ranging family practice here. Um, I get really jazzed up on seeing kids, but I really really like seeing the younger athletes. Is kind of where I uh, really like to be, and where I have found that I have a really big passion for is the middle school, high school athletes, um, just to help them better understand their bodies, their movements, how awesome the body is at performing really, really well, with a clear nervous system, with a nervous system that's functioning at its best or as close to it. That's something I've kind of fallen into practice, right? So coming out of school, I thought I was going to be more of a pregnancy and kind of like prenatal, like kiddo type, chiro, which I still do all of that, but I'm finding I actually have more of a passion for the younger athletes. So that's something I'm kind of shifting towards, putting a lot more of my energy and focus towards that right now.
All right, let's go deeper into that. What's the life experience of a young athlete, middle schooler, high schooler? What are they going through?
Yeah,
Their hormones, they're hitting puberty. They're really rapidly changing. Where are their distractions or influences, or what are their motivations? Because that's the community of people that I really want this podcast to reach. So if you're
yeah,
speaking to that middle school, high schooler, what can you tell them about themselves that you've come to find out through your experiences?
yeah. And again, I'm blessed to be kind of where I am location wise in Columbus, because we have one of the top high schools in the state for sports is about 15, 20 minutes away from my practice. So getting a handful of them from that school in wide ranges of from football to baseball to lacrosse, things like that. Um, but I think the biggest challenge for the younger athlete is just understanding their body more, right? And just because what you say, when they're especially in that transitional area from the early teen into like mid high school, where you are going through puberty, things are changing, the body's adapting and growing and evolving in all these different ways. Helping them understand how their body moves and how it's supposed to function, and giving them the tools to understand, like, hey, like when something does occur, right, a challenge, an injury, or anything like that, that there are some things that you may have to do in the beginning, as far as I have a practice member. He fractured his acetabulum. So for you out there listening, if you don't know what the acetabulum is in the hip, it's basically the joint where your big leg bone meets your hip, right? So he fractured that in football, right? And your football fans out there, if you remember Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama, the same injury that he had, where somebody landed on his back and his femur cracked his acetabulum. So it was really cool with him is, yeah, like he had to go through surgery, he had to get pins, he had to do all that stuff to actually make sure that he had a functioning hip the rest of his life. But then after that, helping him understand, like, hey, like if we keep your spine functioning and moving, keep that nervous system clear, your body's actually going to have a better chance of healing and repairing and getting back to the field, because he really loves football. Get him back on the football field, and doing what he loves, and helping his body just process that injury, not have it become a hindrance to his performance, but actually help him move past it so he can actually then continue to do all the things that he wants to do. Right. And that goes for any athlete. Right. And I share my story with a lot of the athletes. From eighth grade to my senior year, I had an injury every year in high school, every single year. I wasn't getting adjusted. And I always wonder to myself, if I was under, consistent lifestyle based chiropractic care through those years, like I wonder what would have changed, right? And now knowing what I know now, it's like, well, depending on who you ask, who you talk to, but a lot of people that I got a chance to learn from at Life University is that there's always some sort of neurological deficit that precedes an injury most of the time, right? And knowing, learning a lot more of what we do as chiropractors for people and how we actually impact that neurology, it's a thought in my mind is like, oh, if we can help these kids get adjusted and stay adjusted, we might actually help them lessen a lot of those injuries, right? Or again, just help them bounce back quicker.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
when you were at Life University, your student experience, a lot of people gravitate towards, I'll just say, three things. What were the
Mhm.
top three things that you found yourself really passionately diving deep into? And if you could kind of illustrate where you found those things or who your mentors became, and
Yeah.
kind of give us a better understanding of what shaped you as a chiropractor.
Yeah. So again, very lucky to kind of end up where I was. I only applied to one chiropractic school, which was Life University. I didn't even show up, didn't visit the campus, didn't see it. I showed up first day for new student orientation, seeing the campus for the first time, being there for the first time. Um, First thing that I really dove into was the philosophy behind chiropractic, just because I really didn't have a lot of that with my very short experience with chiropractic before going to school. So I really wanted to know that. I wanted to know, like, what's this premise, like, why do people do this, like what's the real kind of foundational uh building blocks for chiropractic, right? So that was the first thing that I really dove into. And again, being at Life, I felt like I was pretty lucky just because of the stance they took on the philosophy, and the stance they still have on the philosophy, and teaching it, and exposing people to it early. Um, but then I always go back to one of the first assemblies that I was in. And Ben, I'm not sure where you went to school, if you guys had assemblies or anything like that. Weekly Um,
Yeah, we have weekly seminars. I was at Life
Seminars,
West.
basically. Yeah, Life West. Okay, so you were very similar there. So weekly seminars, basically, where it was mandatory, where it was basically like a class. You got credit for showing up. Um, One of the first ones that I went to, one of the first ones that was in my first quarter was Dr. Steve Judson, right? Uh, huge, huge guy in philosophy, huge guy, huge presence in DE, dynamic essentials. And, he got up there and I'm just like in awe of this. I'm just watching him and listening to him. And it was just like, okay, this guy's got something. There's something about how he communicates and, where his passion's at. So that really got me fired up. Like, okay, like I need to know more what he knows. And I really started diving into the green books, right? And just kind of getting kind of more of that foundational piece on our philosophy as chiropractors. But then from there, I got hooked in with Dr. Arno Bernier MLS seminars, which really just took that philosophy even further. But then really got me on the track of my skills as an adjuster, right? The art of chiropractic, what we call it, being able to deliver a uh, really high quality, professional grade adjustment to really clear somebody's system, to allow them to feel, and to realize the potential of what can happen when you are getting adjusted, right? So that's probably been my biggest, those two things. And then I guess I'll throw in the third one here too. So Dr. Arno has been a huge mentor. Now Dr. Wade Port, who is leading the charge for MLS. Dr. Wade has been my biggest personal and professional mentor that I found while I was in chiropractic school. Still to this day, I'm on staff actually with MLS, so I actually do travel around and help teach still. Um, but then also at Life, had a chance to be around a lot of really high quality individuals and chiropractors. Dr. Zhila Marsh was a huge influence going through chiropractic school. Um, Always like to turn back to him. Dr. Eric Plasker was another one that I spent a lot of time with to help kind of mold me going through school. And that's the beautiful thing about places like Life West, and some of these really awesome chiropractic schools. Sherman's another one. There's a lot of awesome chiros, but a lot of awesome people that you can get hooked in with, and to really help you kind of find who you are as a chiropractor, but then also find who you are as a person to help kind of get you into the best position to succeed. Once you do leave school.
Hmm. Do you think it was you being an athlete growing up that really has attracted you to working with athletes? I'm curious of like now
Yeah,
that you're a practicing chiropractor 5 years in, what can you look back on your life before going to chiropractic school and say, this is actually who I was. And in chiropractic school, I was able to find myself really just passionate about serving who I was, serving the
yeah,
person that didn't have access back then and could have. I know you've already told that story, but if you can kind of just dive deeper
sure.
into how these mentorships helped you find
Yeah,
yourself, because you said that the purpose of school was to really find you,
yeah,
and you
for sure.
mentioned a number of people.
Yeah, I think that has a huge impact on it, for sure. Just because I was an athlete my entire childhood, all the way through high school, I, and then even after high school, wasn't really playing sports anymore, but really got into weightlifting, training, personal training, all those things. I'm still trying to be athletic and find an outlet for that. So I really do think that was a huge proponent of that, and kind of realizing like that's a passion of mine, but also I can connect with them because I have that experience, right? I have been through a lot of the things that they had been through, a lot of the same challenges, injuries, coming back from injuries, training, like all these things. I can connect with them authentically, um, and talk to them in a way that makes sense to them, right? And I think that's probably one of the bigger things that I got from my mentors and still get from my mentors is realizing that we all have these experiences, these lived experiences, uh, through our life, we all, as chiropractors, and at least for me, when I got to chiropractic school and even going through it, it was like, okay, I was me before chiropractic school, and now I'm me in chiropractic school. And I tried to like split them and like make it two different experiences when in reality, it's all the same. And everything happening before chiropractic school was just preparing me for chiropractic school, getting through chiropractic school, and then becoming, stepping out and then into the public to serve them as a chiropractor. Like all of that was in preparation for that, right? And learning not to disconnect that, but actually come more connected to that and lean more into that and realize like all of that was preparing me for this, right? So definitely all of those experiences have really shaped kind of where I'm now kind of realizing like, oh, wait, like I actually think I might want to kind of more go this way, kind of from the uh, more of the, like the pediatric pregnancy realm of like, wow, like that was really awesome and still is awesome to me. And I like to serve those people as well. But then even kind of branching off from that and realizing, oh, wait, like I actually think I have a better connection with the younger athletes. And so it's just constantly kind of refining and just being uh, true true to myself, right? And I think that's a big thing, going through chiropractic school is finding that out.
Mhm.
And I'm a huge believer and proponent that the 3.5 to 4 years in chiropractic school um, can be a one of the most transformational times in a chiropractor's life if you allow it to be, right? Because it's very easy, and I'm sure Ben, you had these experiences going through school as well. Is it can be very easy for students to get bogged down by all of the things that come along with going through a program like that, right? Um, but if we allow ourselves as chiropractic students going through school to open up to all the other possibilities that chiropractic school can bring to you, it can actually become a huge time for growth and personal development, which I personally loved every minute of that part because I did a lot of that going through school, clubs, seminars, like all these things to really get the most out of my time there to make sure that I could step out of school not just the best chiropractor, but the best version of myself.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you see how primed a teenage athlete is to become a chiropractor if they just knew that this was a pathway, a professional
Sure.
direction?
Yeah, and I've had a few conversations here and there with some of the athletes that I do see, and just like and letting them know, like, hey, like you're already um, got a kind of a leg up on a lot of potential people that go to chiropractic school just because of your athletic background, and you already you're using your body already for your sport, right? And it becomes a very easy and well, not very easy, easier, I'll say, an easier transition for athletes a lot of the times getting into like I'll say like maybe like the physical parts of being a chiropractor as far as adjusting, using your hands, using your body, just because they have that body awareness. They know how to use their bodies. They kind of it's a little easier transition. I'm not going to say it's not easy, but it's easier for those people just because they have that experience with using their body for sure.
Mhm, mhm. And I imagine being in Ohio, working with athletes, you work with a diverse population of people.
Mhm.
Would you believe that us attracting more diversity into the profession will make a huge difference on just the complexion of the profession as far as who they can reach, where they're positioned, which communities they serve, the language that they can adapt themselves to speak? I'm just curious what your perspective is on that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something our profession is kind of moving slightly towards with, especially when you start to see like the students at the school, in those different diverse backgrounds. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's would be a huge thing for a profession to be able to start to kind of attract more of the diverse crowd and more of those people to into this profession to then come back and be able to serve those communities, right? Because it's just going to always help, right? When a potential um, practice member, a potential anybody, right? And they see the doctor as like, oh, I like that person looks like me. Like I can also do that, right? That's always going to help for sure, hands down.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I was curious. You were at Life University, and I want to say that they have like the largest presence of Black and Brown students out of any of the schools. Were you really valuing what they were able to bring to the culture at Life University? And I'm just curious if you could reflect back on what that culture that you saw in maybe the SAPCA clubs or maybe the Latin American chiropractic
Yeah.
clubs, how that was maybe a little different or just how important it was just to have that presence on the campus.
Oh, for sure. I had not a little bit more direct connection with like the Latin influence at Life University, um, with MLS and all those things, just because there was some branches off that were, Latin specific, where they were doing a lot of the things that we would do with MLS, and but teaching it through Spanish and helping them how to communicate in that way, kind of all those things. So I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. And when I was at Life, and I even still to this day, I think Life, we there's a ton of people from Puerto Rico, the Hispanic Latin community, which is fantastic. Just because I mean, there's so many um, people like that, right? Just in our country in general, right? I had a woman in here the other day. Um, with her husband who was translating because she spoke Spanish, didn't really understand a whole lot of English, right? So there's definitely a need for more of those chiropractors that have that background, because again, then it's just going to be an easier connection for people in that community when they see the doctor that is again, um, is more like them, looks like them, right? Some people are more comfortable when they can have that connection for sure.
Hmm. Can you talk specifically about your relationships with Dr. Wade Port, Dr. Zhila
Yeah.
Marsh, and how that dynamic in your mentorship has worked for you? Did you meet with them? Did you go to seminar? And then, just kind of how that relationship develops as a chiropractic student, and then you graduate, you're a chiropractor, now you're working side by side with them, or just like what was it that they gave you that you
Yeah.
find valuable to share with other students just so they can get insights into some of the things you were privileged to expose
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. So with Dr. LaMarche, I was actually, uh, lucky and privileged enough to work with him and kind of be around him, just because of some of the clubs that I was a part of on at Life. That he was basically like our faculty advisor for a lot of the clubs. So we got to kind of sit in with him and bounce ideas off of him, and kind of be with him and learn a lot of, just I want to say simple things as far as just like communication goes, but he was probably the first person that really taught me about, you know uh, gratitude and the power of being grateful for things, and the power of meditation and journaling, and just getting more clear and sound, um, internally, right, as a person, right, but then also how to really uh, get clear on a vision, right? I learned a lot from him on that, on how clarity of purpose and clarity of vision, and doing the work to kind of whittle it down to get to the point to where you have this very concise um, nugget, if you will, of what your purpose is, what your vision is, like where you're going, how you're going to get there, right? I learned a lot of those from him, so that was a huge, huge thing for me, and for anybody going through chiropractic school, right? If you can learn those skills, right? So, and then just being around him in general, right? If anybody's ever met Dr. Marsh, he's a fantastic human being. To be able just to spend some time with him is always a blessing, and I got to spend a lot of it with him, and see him in some leadership roles, and seeing he uh, how he walked, how he acted, how he communicated, and all those things on a very, very professional level, is was priceless. And as far as Dr. Wade goes, um, again, that's personal and professional, right? He's been a huge player in my life, just as a person. My wife was his office manager for 2.5 years while I was at Life. So we got connected that way really, really, really quickly. He was the officiant at my wedding with my wife. Um, he was there when my daughter was born when I was at Life. He was the first person other than me to check her and to adjust her. Um, it's hard for me to put into words uh, all the things that I've gotten from him just because it's so much because I've spent so much time with him. Um, Professionally, again, just learning really what it looks like and what it means to be a great chiropractor, right? And a great business owner, and learning those skills and learning uh, the communication from. He's a master communicator, and learning how he um, approaches certain situations and talks to people and does those things is amazing. But even more so, just the things that he's given me on a personal level without really like learning from him, just kind of like just being around him and listening and seeing and doing all those things is priceless. And just the fact that I get to uh, teach alongside him now, right? Going from the student and kind of being uh, under his wing as a student and learning from him there, and now even still being there still, but then also being able to stand next to him, right, and teaching and doing all those things. It's an amazing journey, an amazing path, especially going through what MLS can provide for the chiropractic student and even the chiropractor. Has nothing short uh, changed my life on a completely positive level.
Hmm. Hmm. I'm just curious if you could touch on what your personal vision is or how it's crystallized to this moment. And then also maybe some things that people don't know about what it's like to be a business owner. I know you said you're an associate, but thinking of yourself as a business owner and also having a wife who was a CA, there's multiple things that you could unpack with your last comment there.
Yeah. And I think my vision for being a chiropractor has remained mostly the same, but I've kind of just whittled it down um, to the point to where it's not so much focused on just a certain uh, group of people, rather than just now it's more about just whoever I get a chance to come in contact with and who I get a chance to serve and who I'm in front of and who I get a chance to help and serve with chiropractic, to where now it's just being able to authentically connect and allow people to live their best life uh, with a free and highly functioning neurospinal system, right? Allowing them to feel what that really feels like, right? Because a lot of people, and Ben, you probably know this too. A lot of people come into our offices for chiropractic care, and they don't even remember what it's like to feel that freedom, right, within their body, right. So that's my biggest vision right now, is to help as many people as I possibly can get to that point and to realize that that is where their where their true health and their true vitality and their well-being comes from, is that stuff that we already have within us, right.
Mhm.
um, and as far as like the business side goes, right, so I actually had my own practice coming out of school and then transitioned into being an associate. um, I learned a lot from that first practice that I opened out of school, even though I don't have that practice anymore. um, you know there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you you learn probably more from the experiences that don't go the way you want them to, than the ones that do, right. So I learned a ton from that experience on um, it's more of like quote unquote what not to do than what to do. But that's, I mean, it's still valuable because now to the day, like if I ever would get back to the point of owning my own practice, which probably will happen at some point in the future, right? I have those experiences to guide me, right? But also at the same time, there is a business side to being a chiropractor, right? So that's um, again what so many students get through school probably not realizing is that importance, right? Is like if you're going to come out and have your own practice, there's a whole other side to business that you really need to learn um, before doing that. Or if you're going to do it right out of school, right? Make sure you spend the time in school to learn those things, right? Um, and it is not, this is not an uncommon, or I'm going to say an uncommon, a comment that not a lot of, I know people that I went to school with didn't like, but it's not the school's job to prepare you to be a business owner. Their job is to get you to the point where uh, you can pass your boards and you can get your license, right? That's really the role of school, is getting people to that point, right? So it's up to us as students to find these doctors or to find these seminars that are um, going to give us the things, maybe even some coaching groups that are going to give us the skills and the tools to become more successful um, business owners, right?
If you're keeping it real, what went wrong or what didn't go right? Like,
Sure. Yeah, no,
talk about the failures, because that's really more
please.
in some ways
Yeah.
beneficial.
Yeah, and I'd love to do that. Just because I
Like
see
all
that
the
as,
things that were going right, and
yeah,
then still.
right. And to be honest with you, I just wasn't. I didn't do enough. I fell into the crowd, like going through school, where I didn't do quite enough business wise, right, to really have that really great understanding of what a running the business would be like, but then also um, attracting people that office, right? To to fill it, to provide to that office what it needed to be successful, right? And the time commitment that requires, right, is another thing that I didn't have. Uh, so we were like, I didn't know kind of how to allot that time properly and what was more important than others, right? So realizing that when you have a growing business, all of your time is going to have to go to that to get it going and to keep it building and to keep it moving in the right direction, right? Um, and I didn't have that right in my own mind um, to get to the point where that could really take off, right? So um, not getting out in the community enough prior to opening to let people know, who I was, what I'm doing, where we're going to be, what the office, like all of those things, even before the doors open, to really get kind of get that momentum started prior to opening. And then once we opened, um, again, just I didn't spend I was spending more time on uh, trying to have a good uh, social media presence, right? Trying to do all this stuff online and not just getting out or doing that, but then not also getting out and like meeting people face to face and meeting other business owners and talking to other people and doing all of these things to help drive the business, um, which is something that I would do different, obviously next time around. But that's a big part of it for sure.
No, I appreciate the vulnerability. I think
Sure.
that it's really important for me to push back on you and say that it is the school's responsibility to put us in a position to succeed. And just helping us get our license is not helping us succeed. There's so many
Sure.
students that you know of that don't do well when they graduate. And that could, I believe, be prevented with a little bit more proactive emphasis
Sure.
on the reality that you face when you get out of school.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that, because I think I may saying it a little differently is, I guess currently how the schools are constructed is they're just trying to get you to get your license, right? I do think that would be a good thing. And we had some things, some business things at Life, like some weekend things, and you may have had the same thing over at Life West. But even in that, like to your point, wasn't quite enough to get somebody to the point to be able to step out as a business owner and really know what they're doing. Um, so I think as it's currently constructed, yeah, it's not. It's you got to kind of go out and find it yourself, unfortunately. But yeah, I would agree that you know if and when that would change in the future would be definitely very beneficial.
Last question. Do you think that the teenage version of you or the college version of you would be open and sort of receiving the information that you're sharing right now with like a open ear or an open heart? And if not, what could you say to these students to help them really get a message through that, hey, it's not too early to start learning now before you go to chiropractic school, so that you could prepare yourself to be that entrepreneur that you're talking about is kind of missing from the focus when you do dive deep into the philosophy, science, and art?
Yeah. Man, that's a great question. Um, hmm. If I'm being honest, probably, and especially in my like later teenage, like high school years and like early college, um, I'm leaning towards probably not to. I'm not sure, only because I was very much in the mindset of like growing up younger in those years of like not really wanting to do much until things were bad, right? Until I really had to, right? Um, and that's not everybody, but that's kind of where I was at that point. I've kind of learned to kind of come out of that, right? Um, but man, like even like I would say to any younger person, anybody in high school, anybody early college that is thinking about doing something in the health field, right, is even potentially considering chiropractic as uh, something they want to do with their life. I would highly encourage them uh, to be under chiropractic care. Is a right because there's so many students that get to chiropractic school that uh, don't have a whole lot of or no experience with chiropractic care, right? So that's the first thing I would say is if you're considering it and wanting to do it, get under chiropractic care, get under consistent care, know what it's like to be a part of an office and what um, what professional care looks like, right, and what that feels like and what it can do for your health and for you, because I think that's the one of the biggest things for so many students getting through chiropractic school is they don't have that like that anchor, they don't have that experience with getting adjusted or anything like that that really uh, can help them get through a lot of the tough parts in school, right? So for me, it was getting adjusted that first time and just being like, what in the heck was that, right? Uh, Vision changed all these things, but I had a major, like I mentioned, a major back injury, and it was just to the point where it's like, well, like this is the best that I've felt in over a year since this happening, and they barely did it. Like what, like, and just having that anchor for people, I think, is a huge part. But then also um, getting more familiar with the the true principles of what chiropractic actually is and what it can do for people, right? In its pure raw form, right? And what I mean by that is what the adjustment can do for somebody's life outside of pain, right? Because everybody knows that because that's kind of what most people have been marketed to from a chiropractor. But really have an understanding of what the adjustment can do for somebody's life, right? And for me, like what it did for my life, right? It started with a major back injury, right? That got me curious, but then learning the principles and the philosophy and all these beautiful things that chiropractic offers literally changed the trajectory of my life, but then has changed the trajectory of what my daughter's life looks like now, right? And how I'm raising her, how my wife is, how we raise her together, the choices that we make for her health, right? And her well being. That all is a proponent of what happened with that first adjustment in January of 2012, right? Um, so having that, starting to develop that understanding of what care can really do for somebody's life, right? And that might be looking like getting under care and experiencing yourself, or spending some time in an office um, that talks about chiropractic like that with people and offers that for people and seeing how these people's lives change, seeing how it can change an infant's trajectory for growth and development, right? Seeing, if you like athletes, see how it can change an athlete's um, performance, how they recover faster, how they perform, how they go do what they do just better, right? Um, are probably the two biggest things that I would really highly encourage anybody wanting to become a chiropractor to have that experience earlier than later.
Hmm. Sweet. Oop.